Dr. J. Sedwick is our youth guru here at the seminary. He's had more than 25 years of youth ministry experience, serves on the board of the Association of Youth Ministry Educators. He has 4 children, guaranteeing a youth laboratory in his own house for the next several years. He's an ordained minister, teaches at a large church in Dallas. First Baptist is that church. He's also a popular conference and seminar speaker. His research and teaching interests include legal and financial issues in ministry, youth development, biblical education for youth, and curriculum design. Would you welcome Dr. Sedwick?
Thank you, Chaplain. Yes, sir. Good morning. It's good to see you here. All enjoying the heat and the weather here in Texas. Today, we're going to talk about a story that happened to me, and I'm going to go really, really fast because there are so many details associated with this story, and if I don't finish it, you're going to be left hanging and wondering what happened. So the chaplain promised me he won't kick me off the stage until I finish. Actually, he didn't promise me that, so we'll see how it goes. But this story is an illustration of how God is in control of the things that go on around us, whether we realize it or not. You've all heard of coincidence. What is coincidence? Things that kind of happen and work together, and we think, oh, that was interesting how that happened. Well, I'm about to tell you a story of an awful lot of details in something that happened that I was a part of. It's not about me. It's not focused around me, although I'm a part of the story. And when you look back, hindsight is 20/20. You look back and you go, oh my goodness. But as this was happening, we realized that God was doing something pretty significant. And then there's one point in the story that I'm hoping that will really get a hold of you and show you how God worked in a miraculous way. What I've done, because the details are a little confusing, is I'm going to provide you pictures of the people involved so you can at least have a visual of each person as I talk about them and as we get through the story. I was supposed to go to Thailand a year ago in January for a class, and that trip got canceled. Oh well, just a detail, didn't think much of it. Well, in place of that, decided to go, had an opportunity to go to Cuba. Went to Cuba, had a great 2-week ministry experience there, and on my way home, I got bumped to first class. Oh, yes! You don't get that very often, but when you do, it's great. I get bumped to first class and didn't think much of it. There's another lady that's there, don't know her, I've never seen her. She gets bumped to first class. We're sitting next to one another. You need to keep this scripture verse in mind. I sit beside a lady named Judy Fox. I don't know her. We start talking. Turns out she plans mission trips for university, college, sports teams all around the world to go and do mission work. Well, it just so happens that my daughter, Leah, is a soccer player for Dallas Baptist University, and they are at that very time trying to figure out where to go for their mission trip for that particular summer. And so I strike up a conversation. We talk for a while, and I get her business card, and we part ways, and off we go. I get back to the university, I hand the business card to the coach, and at that point, I'm out. Hand her hey, you might want to talk to this lady named Judy Fox. All right? I give that to Michelle Leonard, who is the Dallas Baptist University soccer coach, head women's soccer coach, and she puts it in a drawer, and she's out. She just kind of forgets about it. A couple of months go by, and one of her friends, who's a coach at Texas Women's University, TWU, says, you need to, if you can, provide some soccer equipment for one of my friends to take on a mission trip to Liberia, and the guy's name is Doc Lawson. She doesn't think much of that. That very same afternoon, one of her former players, who's graduated several years before, calls her up and says, hey, you need to get some soccer equipment together for this mission trip that's going to Liberia, and you need to meet this guy. And she says, Doc Lawson. And the girl on the other said, what? She goes, how'd you know this? She goes, well, I already got a phone call today about Doc Lawson. Now, some of you, if you've been in Dallas long enough to remember, Doc Lawson played with Tattoo on the Sidekicks. And he was at one point, one of the best soccer players in the nation. And he's Liberian, came from Liberia. Now, real quick, just on the side, Liberia, if you remember, the name Charles Taylor, who is now serving lifetime prison sentences along with his son, massacred hundreds of thousands of people. This is the country that we're talking about, Liberia, that Doc came from. And you need to meet Doc Lawson. So that was enough for Michelle to say, you know what, I probably should meet Doc Lawson. So she calls Doc Lawson. He comes to the university. She sits down. She starts talking to him about what he does in ministry. He sets up children's clinics, sports clinics, things like that all around the world, but specifically he's focused on Liberia because that's where he's from. She gets excited about it, and she decides to pursue it a little bit more. They were thinking about taking the team to Europe, but now she's thinking, could we possibly go to Africa? And Doc says, oh, but there's one more thing. You need to get in touch with Judy Fox. She's like, wait a minute. I've heard that name before. So she rushes back to her office. She opens up her drawer. She pulls out the business card that I had given her 3 months earlier in January. And now she's starting to get goosebumps and wondering, God's doing something here. This is interesting. You know. So now she goes, we've got to pursue this because it's not just coincidence. God is doing something. So she goes to Ryan Irwin, who is the Dallas Baptist University athletic director, and says, Ryan, I would like for you to consider allowing us to take the team to Africa, to Liberia. Ryan says, forget it. Not going to happen. We took a bunch of students to Africa a few years ago, and it was an absolute disaster, and the president of the university said, never again. We will not take any students to Africa. Isn't going to happen. So he said, not going to happen. She said, well, before you completely say no, at least meet with me and Doc Lawson. So they meet and talk. Ryan gets excited about it. Ryan decides to include the vice president, Dr. Blair Blackburn. Blair says, Africa, off the table, isn't happening, can't be done. We had such a disastrous experience. He actually went on that trip, and it was a disaster. And he said, we're not going back to Africa. We're just not going to do it. But they meet with Doc Lawson. As soon as they've finished that meeting, Dr. Blackburn is so excited about the possibility that he decides to go to Dr. Gary Cook, the president of the university. So he goes to Dr. Cook, they present the whole thing, and Dr. Cook goes, absolutely, you have to go. And one of the reasons is, one of his best friends, Dr. Ule Menje, is in Liberia and is the president of Rick's Institute. He's also the vice president of the Baptist World Alliance, and he's the president of the convention, the Baptist Convention in the country of Liberia. So Ryan and Blair and Michelle are like, they can't believe that the president said without even consideration, you have to go. You absolutely have to go. Again, another coincidence? I don't think so. God was doing something very specific to make this happen. So the decision is made to go to Liberia. Now we have to raise $90,000 to take 31, 32 students and a few adults to Liberia for this particular event to take place. That's a pretty awesome task for college students who are scraping by anyway to come up with that kind of money. It was about $3,500 per person to go. So it was expensive. But we made the commitment. It was a step out in faith, and Judy Fox and Doc Lawson started planning the trip. After a soccer game last September, Michelle Leonard, the coach, walks up to me and says, I'm not sure why, but I'd like to invite you to go along on the trip to Liberia. Wow, that was very nice. Because typically they don't want parents of the players along on a trip like that, you know. But she decided to invite me to come to be a part of the trip. And she has since told me she had no reason to do that. She said, I just felt led by God to ask you to come. I don't know why, but I never regretted it. And again, in hindsight, coincidence? I don't think so. But she invited me to come, and I decided to join the trip and go along. So I also got involved in the fundraising efforts. March, fast forward to March, this past March, we get a phone call from a family that is not related to Dallas Baptist University, but heard about our trip and what we were planning to do, and they ponied up $45,000 for us to go. They paid for half of the entire thing with one check. I mean, it was incredible, just out of nowhere, not somebody with the university, but related to someone at the university who found out about the trip. Just amazing how God, again, provided. Coincidence? I don't think so. God was doing something very special. And then on April 22nd, something happened that blew me away. I'm looking at my computer, and I get an email from Africa. Now, typically when you get an email from Africa, what do? Delete, you dump that thing as fast as possible, right? I've got $20 million and I want to send it to you, or I've got just, you've seen them all, you know what? So I saw that, but for some reason, I decided to open the email. So I clicked the email and opened it, and this is what I saw. I'm going to try to read it. If you can't read it in the back. It says, Dear Prof. Sedwick, greetings from the Liberia Baptist Theological Seminary in Monrovia, Liberia. I'm Dr. Jacob Vambo, Director of Graduate Program at the seminary. I came in contact with your address while looking through the Dallas Theological faculty listing. We are pleasantly running an MDiv program and would wish to invite you to someday teach in 1 or 2 courses during our modular section. I wish to hear from you, and may the Lord bless you. Thank you, Dr. Vambo. So I see this. Now, we're 3 weeks away from going to Liberia. And I get this email, and I read that, and I said, honey, I call my wife, Lori, come here. You got to see this. So she reads it, and she goes, don't respond. This is fishy. Something's up. Something's goofy. That can't be legitimate. How in the world, So I sent a follow-up email to Dr. Ramesh Richard, who knows, if you know anything about Dr. Richard, he knows everybody all over the world, said if this guy's legit, if the seminary is legitimate, Dr. Richard will know about it. So I sent it to Dr. Richard. He said, I've never heard of him. I've never heard of the school, but we have a graduate, Koke, who lives in Liberia. I'm going to send it to him. So he sends the email to Koke. Koke responds the following day and says, I know Dr. Vambo. He's a legitimate, good guy, and the school is legitimate. I've been there before. He can go ahead and respond to this man. So I responded in this way. This is what I wrote back to him. This is a little smaller, so I'll read it to you. It says, Dr. Vambo, it's interesting that you should land on my name. I will be in Liberia from May 19th to the 29th, just a few weeks from today. Did you happen to know that? I don't believe that gives you enough time to arrange for me to teach anything, but I would love the opportunity to meet you while I'm there. Maybe there could be another time for me to come and teach at LBTS. What subject or topics you're interested in having me teach? Dr. Ramesh Richard, my colleague here at DTS, is a good friends with one of your good friends, Koke, a DTS graduate. Dr. Richard's ministry, Reach, has trained over 25 pastors in Liberia, something of which you're undoubtedly aware. I look forward to hearing back from you. So I just responded and said, this is too coincidental. How in the world did that happen? The following day, I got this email back from Dr. Vambo. Dear Dr. Sedwick, by the way, look at the top. It was divine. Dr. Sedwick, I saw many names. I have never even heard about you, neither you're coming to Liberia. I only told the Lord, lead me on to the servant of your choice as you led Abraham, servant to the person you have chosen. Simple, but did reach to heaven. Hope to see you. I don't know about you, but I'm sending all my prayer requests to this guy, okay? So I'm obviously stunned and can't believe what's going on. So we make plans to meet when I'm going to be in Liberia, although it was a little loose, we weren't really sure. We didn't know where Liberia Baptist Theological Seminary was in the country of Liberia. The infrastructure of the country has been totally destroyed by the Civil War. It's very difficult to move around in Liberia. There are some roads in the capital city, but even those roads are difficult to get through with the traffic because you got one road. So everybody travels on the same road. Had no idea. 75% of the country is rainforest. So we weren't too sure how easy or how hard that was going to be to actually meet with him, but at least we had plans to try to do that. Well, the second day we were there, the team, the Dallas Baptist University soccer team, needed a place to practice to get ready for one of the games they were going to play against a national team there. And all of the soccer fields in the city of Monrovia were shut down for a variety of reasons. There was no place to play. Doc Lawson, who's there with us, calls the federation head of soccer for the whole country, says, we need a place to play. And he goes, you know what? There's one field that you could probably play on, and it's at Liberia Baptist Theological Seminary. In the whole country. And he says, that's funny because we have a guy with us who says he'd like to go there. Where is it? And guess what? a quarter mile away from the hotel where we were staying, on the exact same road. In fact, if you looked at a satellite image, the properties were adjacent. They were right next to one another on the same road, which was, again, one of those coincidences? I don't think so. So we went over there, and Doc Lawson actually used me as a bargaining chip to get access to their soccer field. So he said, you stay in the truck and let me go talk to these people. So he goes up to the Palava hut, which is apparently the place where they settle all disputes and things like that. It's a village thing. Anybody here from Africa know what I'm talking about? It's something I just learned about. Dr. Vambo is in that hut, sitting there just studying, reading, praying, working. And I have not met him, never seen him, don't know what he looks like. He doesn't know me. He knows what I look like, and I'll tell you what he told me in just a moment. He goes up to Dr. Vambo and says, I have a gift for you. He said, I have a gift for you, and my gift is in return for hopefully being able to use your soccer field today to play. And he said, I have Dr. J. Sedwick in the truck, and I would like to bring him up here. Dr. Vambo's like, and he is stunned because he can't believe I'm actually there, because we hadn't really finalized some of the details. And communication is also an issue. The lack of electricity, the internet's unreliability, things like that. So I walk up into the Palava hut. I sit down with Dr. Vambo. He's crying at this point. I am just stunned. And I asked him, tell me how this happened. And here's what he told me. He said, I have been praying for years that God would provide some help for our school. We need some help in a variety of different ways. He said, so I said, Lord, help me, lead me to the person. So he started looking through all the seminaries in the United States, and just seminary after seminary after seminary. And the very last one, just on a whim, I'll look at DTS. After looking at many seminaries. Looks at DTS, starts looking through our entire faculty list, and he decides to focus in on the CE department. And then once he's at the CE department, he prints out our bios and our photographs for every member of the CE department. He sets them out on his desk. And he said, and I placed my hands on those papers. And I said, Lord, this is too important. You need to lead me to the person who I can connect with, who can help this school. Please don't let me make a mistake. And a student walked in his office, and he got distracted. He said he turned back about 10 minutes later, and he said, now God, it wasn't a vision, and God didn't speak to me audibly. He said, but it was as if the photograph from your picture jumped off the page. And he said it startled me and scared me, and so much so that I thought that was too fast and there's no way. So he said, I spent 2 days praying about whether to contact you or not, because I couldn't believe that God had answered my prayers so specifically and so directly. He said, but I decided to go ahead and write you that email, the email that you saw from April 22nd. God did something, I think, miraculous, and putting my name in front of Dr. Vambo to give him an opportunity to contact me. So when I heard that story again, now I'm starting to cry. I mean, it's amazing. Again, coincidence? I don't think so. There are so many aspects of this story that work together, that weave together to show me that God is in control. Even when we don't realize it, even when we don't understand what's going on. Again, hindsight is 20/20. I can look back on all this now and go, that is amazing how God worked. All the way back to canceling the trip to Thailand, to put me on the plane next to Judy Fox, who would then help plan the trip. Just amazing details that took place. Real quickly, Liberia is, I'm going to point on this one over here. It's the tiny little country right there it's in West Africa, right over here, right? Very small country, total population under 4 million. At that point, I'm going to show you a picture of the hotel, Thinkers Village, where we were staying, and then the seminary. That's one of the classroom buildings at the seminary that's right by there. And then here's a picture of Dr. Vambo, who I had the pleasure of meeting, and he is now trying to, and will, I believe, successfully apply to our Doctor of Educational Ministry program. So he's going to be on our campus before too long, taking classes here. He's already got one doctorate. He wants another one from DTS. But great guy. And then they invited me to come back on the following Tuesday and preach in chapel at their seminary. So you can't see me, but that's me right there, preaching in their chapel. I got an opportunity to preach a sermon on that following Tuesday. And then I have a quick picture of that's Dr. Vambo, that's obviously me. And by the way, I'm soaking wet because the climate, they're on the equator at sea level in the summertime. It was fun. This is Koke, who's a DTS graduate and friends with Dr. Richard. This is Reverend Toby Gbe, and I'll tell you about him in a second. And this is Charles Barwin, who is a current DTS student in the STM program, and I got to meet him while I was there. Back to Reverend Bay. Reverend Bay is going to be on our campus on the 27th of July. He's actually in the United States, and he's the acting president of Liberia Baptist Theological Seminary. He's going to be meeting with me and a few other faculty and our dean to talk about what relationship Dallas Theological Seminary and Liberia Baptist Theological Seminary could quite possibly have. Because I don't know about anybody else, but I'm convinced that God wants something to happen between our school and their school. And for whatever reason, I'm supposed to be a part of that. Because there's no way I can deny what God did in orchestrating all these different details and bringing us together in that way. We got a chance, by the way, to meet Dr. Menje. I showed you his picture earlier. President of Rick's Institute, Baptist World Alliance Vice President, President of the Convention, Southern Baptist Convention. Turns out, as I talked to Dr. Menje, he's in charge of supervising Liberia Baptist Theological Seminary. Didn't know that until I actually met him and actually got on site to talk to him. We got a chance to play, real quick, Liberia National All-Stars against women's soccer, and that's a combination photo of the two teams. Had a great time doing that. But what happened, again, one more detail that I wanted to share with you about what God was doing. We got a chance to share the gospel at halftime at this stadium with all these people that came to watch our girls play their national team. And we didn't really think that people were paying real close attention. But what ended up happening is that the following day, they printed a full page in the largest newspaper in the country that well over 1 million people read on a daily basis, the gospel very clearly to all those people. We were stunned by what God did, even in that way. Not something we planned, not something we expected to happen, but the fact that God took what happened to that soccer game and then spread it out throughout the entire country so that the people of Liberia could see what was going on and to understand why we were there, to tell people, primarily to tell people about Jesus Christ. And that's a little soccer clinic that the girls ran. Back to Romans 8:28. And we know that God causes all things to work together for good to those who love God, to those who are called according to his purpose. That verse has never meant more to me than it has in the last couple of months in the process of seeing God work so many different intricate details together to bring me the opportunity to go, to bring that soccer team the opportunity to go, to pull all these people together in such a way that we don't know specifically what lays before us, but we are excited about seeing it happen.